Welcome to another edition of the Preaching Lab podcast. How you doing, Jason?
I'm living the dream, Adam. How are you, my brother?
Man, we both have kind of had little vacations uh the
Yeah,
last couple of weeks.
you like all
How
by
was that?
yourself.
Yeah, we
No,
had very different vacations, didn't we? I had to worry
yeah,
about
yeah,
myself. You had to worry about what, an army? Were your grandkids
yes,
on this trip?
exactly. My
So
whole
you
my
had
whole
you had a
tribe.
yeah, yeah, and so
Yeah,
y'all went
I,
to the
I
beach?
don't, I don't even, I don't. Yeah, we went to the beach, went to Orange Beach. We go there every year, try to at least, and we,
Yeah.
we like it. We stay at the same condo, Phoenix West. I'll throw it out there. Maybe we get some money from them. Who knows? But stay at Phoenix West. They always take it's good. It's right there on the beach. We got a lazy river. There's a kiddie pool. There's all stuff for the kids. There's an indoor pool if the weather's bad. Everything else. It's all great, right? But it's never like as relaxing as you think it's gonna be. And
Yeah.
there's always
Yeah.
that like you get done with it, and you're just like, did I have a vacation? I feel like I just did more work in another place.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, I don't know,
You
but
should do
so
what I
that's
do.
that's us,
It
but you
just
went to
all
the
by your lonesome.
Buffalo.
Yeah. Yeah, my family, half my family was on a mission trip to Romania, and then they went to visit some family we have stationed military in Germany. And so I took a few days and dropped the little kids that I've been taking care of by the grandparents, and I went to the Buffalo. Kind of have always it started. I don't want to go into long, but it started with Dr. Mitchell's. I went camping with Dr. Mitchell one time, and his brother Jurl was talking about doing solo boat trips, and I've always for like 25 years I've been like, I want to do that, and so this is kind of my moment to do that. And so I rented a canoe. I had the company drop my car off at the place I wanted to get out, and I canoed 20 miles and just kind of fished and canoed. And it was very relaxing uh, just to be out there. And, I told people were
So
like,
where did
hey,
you
why
where
did
did you, where'd you go in at?
So I went in at Woolham or something like that, and I got out at Gillum. Is it Gillum? Is it Gillum? That starts with a G. It's a city there, but there's a it's not Gillum. Gilbert. So I got out at Gilbert. And so now
Yeah,
people say
Gilbert. Yep.
you're doing this by yourself, like take a friend. My wife was even like that. And I'm like, as a pastor, like, and I am like, I truly am a people person. I love people, but I'm like, all I do is talk. I'm either counseling people or I'm preparing to talk Sunday. I just get tired of talking. And so I was like, I'm just going to go out there. And the only one I have to talk to is myself and the Lord. And so I just kind of enjoyed myself. It was very relaxing, unlike your vacation
Wow.
while you living
I
like that.
just wow. I mean, it sounds amazing. It does. I'm
Yeah.
jealous. I've always
Yeah.
I've loved the Buffalo, floated it a
Yeah,
few
I wanna
times,
do it.
and
I do
so
wanna
it's
do it with a group of guys now, so we can start putting that together now that I got that
well,
out of
now
my
that you've now
that
that you've
alone
you've
alone
you've,
stuff out
uh,
of my
you've
system.
prepared the way for us, you've experienced it,
Yeah,
all we
yeah,
need is all we need is to put
yeah,
it together, for sure.
yeah. And it's funny, my mom was so worried, she was like, "Someone's gonna kidnap you," and I'm like, "Mom, do you think, like, 270 pound 270 pound men with a couple of guns on the Buffalo is really high on the list of people's, I mean, that's somebody, a kidnapper really wanting a challenge, you know what I'm saying?
Hey, I would just take the compliment. "Thanks, mom.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
appreciate I
yeah,
appreciate that,
yeah,
mom." Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
fantastic.
yeah.
Well, that's what
So
moms do, right? That's what
today,
moms do.
yeah, that's
Worry
right.
about impossible missions that, somebody
Yeah,
may
I'm
wanna take
almost
on.
50 and mom's still worried about me. Um, so our to get today, we want it's kind of a continuation of our we kind of last time talked about just dealing with church hurt in general, and we kind of ran out of time and didn't get to the part where I really wanted to talk about, like, how do we handle it as pastors specifically when the church hurts us. And so, Jason, I don't think it's a mystery that that you've had some church some experiences there. And look, I've
I
been at
don't
the
know
same
what you
church for
mean, Adam.
25. Yeah, I've been at the same church for 25 years, and so but I have been hurt by people in the church, no doubt. So let's just talk about how do you handle that as a pastor? Like how do you uh we know so many guys or have heard of so many guys that they get hurt, they leave ministry, and really sometimes they leave the church altogether because the church hurt them, and so they have a bad view of the church. So how do we guard ourselves from that as pastors of just giving up when the church hurts us?
I think what's always helped me is to remember that I'm a sinner, and that because I'm a sinner, I am not only not immune to being hurt, but I'm also not immune to hurting. And so I shouldn't think that my words, my actions, my behavior has never had a negative impact on a church member either. Maybe I didn't hear about it. Maybe I heard about it a lot, but I know that I'm a sinner, and this is what sinners are really good at. Sinners are really good at sinning, and sometimes their sinning hurts others, and sometimes it hurts pastors. And I think we should not think that that is a unique situation when it does occur, because this is the conflict of sin in real life and even in church settings.
Mhm. Yeah. So as pastors, what what's the hurt that we experience that probably what wounds are maybe the most painful? For me, for
I
instance,
think
like I'll give it as far as all with example. Like I think when
okay,
it comes from a place I'm not expecting it, like there's sometimes you just know, okay, this church member has teeth, and you kind of expect to be bit. And I think the time that I've been hurt is when it's someone that I didn't expect it from, that I thought we were good, and they never really hurt, and then suddenly I get hurt, and so I think just being blindsided. I think. What about you? What are some examples you can think
no, I
of?
mean that's always a good one when we think we have a relationship with someone or that there's some there's some grace there, then suddenly it seems like something's come up that's changed that. That's definitely tough. I think any from a eh, personally, I think it's when my motives are brought into question.
Mm,
Maybe there's not the assumption that what I'm trying to do is for is either according to scripture or it's for the overall betterment of the church or the vision or anything like that. But it's a personal, like I've got a personal either axe to grind or I've got a personal agenda that I'm trying to do that's counter to what's really good for the church. I think those types of things I take personal because it's like, well, I mean, no, I mean, you think that as pastor, no, I don't. Yeah, we all have agendas, but my agenda, I'm hoping, is in line with Scripture and with what the Scripture tells us to do, what God calls us to do, and anything that we're trying to do is in line with that. And when that's called into question, or that's just outright, disagreed with, or something, I think that's when it's kind of like, well, what's
mm,
going on here?
mhm,
What are we doing? And so that's and granted, and then if I'm not careful, then I become really defensive, and
mhm,
that's when maybe I don't handle the situation very good because I'm more worried about defending my honor and my character, air quotes, than I am
mhm,
about maybe showing love and grace and humility to the person um that's coming and challenging me or
mhm.
uh, making things difficult.
What do you think, like, as far as, like, say you're talking to a young man that's going into ministry, what are the expectations that maybe he has that are wrong that could lead him to, walking away from the church and being hurt by the church? Like, going into ministry, like, what would you? We'll
Well,
talk a minute about making about fortifying ourselves again, like what you would tell pastor to fortify himself. Like, but what are a lot of times the expectations that a young pastor has?
I think there's always the expectation that we're gonna get to be the hero, right? That we're gonna get to be the hero, that they're gonna love every sermon, that they're gonna be like the biggest fans of all of our vision casting and mission ideas and all of the rest of it. That they're just gonna be like, man, I'm so blown away that no one has ever said these things the way that you said them, and no one's ever laid out a vision, and that's so great, right? That's kind of our, expectation that we're gonna be the one that maybe everything clicks and it just all comes together. And I think sometimes we don't understand early in ministry the work of gaining people's trust,
Mm,
or the work of keeping people's trust, or the work of caring for people before you try to get them to see the areas they need to change or the direction of the church that needs to improve. I think that's what kind of frustrates guys, is this laboring to gain trust, to grow trust. I think that's what oftentimes frustrates them, is that people just don't take them at their word, and aren't just ready to follow them, in whatever direction they're wanting to lead. Because why would you not? Why would you not trust me? Why would you not think that I have your best interest at heart? And so they get frustrated when those types of things happen.
mhm. Yeah, and I think something you said initially, just the expectation, not having the correct expectations, that you idealize the church, that, oh, this is the church, so it's made up of saints. Well, as Luther would say, they are saints and sinners simultaneously. And so you are going into a situation where and it is not, I mean, these people, we're in church because we need help, and we're sinners that in need of a savior. And so just the you are going to be hurt. You need to go in and realize that you're going to get some bruises, you're going to get some cuts, and you're going to have to kind of have an enduring uh spirit, and to get in there and not think that you're going to some island paradise, because that is not ministry. I think that's, you know go ahead.
No, I think you're exactly right. Paul Tripp, when he first wrote his book on marriage, it was called "What Did You Expect?"
Yeah,
Right, and
yeah.
and the whole book, especially the first edition or so, was all about the unrealized expectations of marriage, and why, when we have these idealized expectations in marriage, how things can become about you know what we want. It's just about individual wants rather than what's good for the marriage, what's good for our family. And it's the same thing in pastoral ministry or any kind of vocational ministry. When you have these idealized expectations that everything's just be great, like you're going to throw out an idea and everybody's going to be in 100% supportive of it, or you're going to preach a sermon and it's going to be the most revolutionary sermon they've ever heard, and everybody's going to like stand up and cheer for you and applaud you and all these types of things. And when you have these unrealistic expectations, whether it's, just simple things like, look, dude, people sleep during your sermons. Okay. Like, they're not always listening to what you have to say. Sometimes you're going to have to repeat things. Sometimes you're going to ask people, hey, what did you think of this sermon, or, or whatever. And they're going to clearly not have a clue about what you just preached on while they're walking out the back of the church.
Hmm.
And you can
Hmm.
either allow those things to frustrate you. You can allow those things to make you bitter. You can think I deserve better, or you can really realize that, hey, these people, man, they're sinners, and they're going to sin, and they're going to hurt you, and you need to be ready for it, because Jesus kind of said, like, look, if they hurt me and I'm the master, expect that you're going to get hurt too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So what would you tell a young man that's going to pastor to help him fortify himself where he's going to have a more resilience against uh the hard times and to endure. What are some tips that you would give a young guy going in maybe to his first church?
Number one, go in there with eyes wide open. Like, ask all the questions, understand all of the situations as you best as you possibly can about why the previous pastors left, what caused previous problems. Like, go in there with your eyes wide open. Don't just assume that every other guy left because they were the problem and this church got everything right. And so you're gonna be you're gonna be the guy that gets it right because these other guys got it wrong. And so just go in there with eyes wide open. Understand the situation. Understand everything. Now and so that means you're probably going to need to make some awkward phone calls to previous pastors and have them tell you why it is that they left, or what were the pros and
Hmm.
cons, who were the decision makers in the church. Like, don't take a church without asking all the questions.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I would also say, don't take a church without being willing to answer all the questions. If you go to a pulpit committee, or a pulpit committee comes to you, and for any reason whatsoever you say these questions are off limits, you can't ask me questions about my family, or you can't ask me questions about my finances, or you can't ask me questions about whatever, like, then you're not ready. You're
Hmm.
not ready, because everything should be on the table. Everything.
Hmm.
This church is making an investment in you. This church is trusting you, and if you can't start off that relationship with complete honesty about where you are theologically, where you are practically, about any of these things, then don't take the church.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
don't put yourself in a situation where you're looking to to ultimately get in conflict over some sort of issue
Hmm.
theologically or practically, or whatever else that could have been avoided if you would have just entered with complete honesty and openness to
Hmm.
begin with.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. So I think one way to avoid being hurt by your first church is pick a good church, and
Yeah,
and
yeah,
don't look, like, if you look at the church, and the church has had, 10 years of 1 to 2 years of 15, their last 15 pastors, and that's probably not the church for a guy straight out of Bible college or seminary to be his first church. Now, there were exceptions. I mean, there's always exceptions to that rule. Maybe there's a reason why it might work this time, but man, go in there with eyes wide open, because I think it's better. It's better just to take your time. I've seen so many guys, they graduate and then they think, I've got to be a pastor immediately, and so they'll take the first church that they can. And I think I've seen so many guys just get hurt because of that. Where I would say to a young guy, man, it would be better for you to go be a fry cook at McDonald's and serve faithfully at a church, and get to know a pastor, sit under a pastor and a healthy church. It would be better to do that than to go and be hurt by your first church.
yeah. I,
But
I,
they
I
were back.
totally
I think
agree.
we faded out a minute. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Again, this is going to come across as do as I say, not as I do. Because yes, as somebody who pastored a church at 21 years old, and and was put into that position. I wasn't necessarily seeking it, but it found me, and I pursued it once it did. Like, I would never tell a young man to go pastor at that age.
Hmm.
I would never tell, especially when you're the only guy. Like, there's
Hmm.
not. you're not going on staff, you're not interning, like, no, they're calling you to be the pastor, the guy that's expected to preach and teach and do all those things. Like, for me, God used it to grow me, to mature me, to kind of slap me around and realize where I was in need of growth and in need of developing as a man, not just as a minister, but as a man, as a husband, in all these areas. I am incredibly thankful, right? I mean, it has been an incredibly sanctifying work. But I was 10 years into pastoring, and I'm only 31, and yet I think I know what I'm doing, and I find out, like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I didn't really know. I knew how to preach sermons. I knew how to do things that pastors do, but I still didn't know how to be a pastor. I didn't know how to minister to people well and to care for people well. Those were things and I didn't even know that. Like, and it took me having kids and my kids getting older and realizing a lot of things about myself it's so hard. And so take your time. I know that churches need pastors. I know that there are many churches that are without good and faithful men, and I know you're going to feel the burden and responsibility to be that guy, and that's good. That's a good feeling to have. But I want you to take your time. I want you to be willing to fill the pulpits of those churches, get 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 good practice in standing in a pulpit preaching, but you need to be ready and mature and prepared for the slings and arrows when you sign on to say, I'm ready to be your pastor. And you need to have your eyes wide open, and you need to be ready for whatever may happen, especially if you're in a church that is used to a pastor, senior pastor, uh, a solo pastor model. You need to be ready for what's going to happen. If,
Hmm.
if you're going
Yeah.
into a church that is a deacon led church, right? Because they don't have a
Hmm.
plurality of elders or they don't have a staff, but they're a typical Baptist church. And the deacons are going to be the deciding body, the deliberative body. In function they are elders, but they're still deacons. Or you got a church it's a women's ministry led church. I mean, those churches out there too. Like,
Hmm.
let's not be naive. No, they may not have women standing up in the pulpit, but it's clear that there is a group of women who are making the majority of the decisions or pushing for the decisions. Like, you need to know who are the decision makers in this church. Who's the man of peace in this church? Who's the person that when they say this is what we're doing, then everybody, whether they like it or not, they all get behind it because they're not going to go against that person. Who's that person? You've got to know all of those things and be willing to either work within that structure or to say, no, I can't come here because I don't agree with this. Like, but you have to be aware of it. You need to be
Hmm.
aware of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So to kind of sum all that up is do your homework before you go to a church. But kind of going back to what we initially talked about is, but you are going to be hurt. And I think one thing I'd tell a younger pastor is, um, it's not always personal, you know, the, and what I mean by that, I'll give you an example of, of a lesson I learned from a certain relationship I had with a widow that I wish this is a lesson I wish I would have learned sooner is that she hated everything about the pastoral staff. She hated every decision we wanted to make. She was always against us. She was always just so dang mean. I remember talking to her one time, and it was kind of one of those having uh, she was griping at us about the fact that none of us had our phone numbers in the phone book anymore. We were like, we don't have landlines. It's we have cell phones. We don't have a phone number to put in the phone book. And And so she was just giving us grief about that. And she said a statement, and she said, "I should have just died with my husband." And what
Mm,
I realized, she's sad because church isn't like what it used to be when her husband was alive and they were, coming to church together. Their kids were with them. It was just that she didn't hate us. She hated the situation she found herself in as a widow, and
yeah,
church just
yeah.
feeling different for her. And so then a light bulb went off, and I was like, okay, so it's not that she hates me, it's that she's treating me badly because she's hurting because she's lost her husband a couple of years ago. And so I just kind of changed my way of dealing with her because I just always had my guard up, and it's like, oh, you want to hit me? I'll hit you back. And I just kind of laid down arms, and I realized I just got to love this lady. And man, we really, by the time she died, had built a really good relationship. After I came to that realization, I preached her funeral, uh, and all of that. And so it was just, it's not always personal. Sometimes people are just struggling with lots of things, and there's some church members, they're just having a bad day, and they take it out on you as the pastor. And
Yeah.
and and
No, I
sometimes
think
it's not that deep, and we want to make it deep, and we want to like carry a wound that was never really their intent. They were just dealing with other sin in their life.
no, that's 100% accurate, and what's important is if you are a pastor and God has called you to pastor and equipped you to pastor, and a church has voted on you to be their pastor, then you've got to pastor even through these times. Okay?
Mhm.
You did your
Yeah.
homework. You understood the situation. You took it on anyway, right? When hurt people, because that's what happens, just what you talked about. When hurt people, you still have to pastor those people. Even when those hurt people hurt you have to pastor them, because sometimes the sheep bite the shepherd. Sometimes the sheep don't respond as the shepherd would want them to. But we don't get to say and throw our hands up and say, well, I tried, and go. No, you still have to do the work of shepherding. You still have to do the work of pastoring. And that's where, you've got to be willing to examine yourself and say, if I can't do this, or I don't want to do this, or this is too much for me, then you better say, okay, maybe I need to step away, because it's
Mhm.
better that you step away and realize maybe this situation is more than you can handle or too much. You step away with your name intact, with your reputation intact, with your marriage intact, with your family intact, rather than doing what sadly a lot of guys do, or some guys do, when they find themselves in this situation, and they either disqualify themselves morally, or they just leave the church and leave the faith altogether.
Mhm. So that's a good segue into what I want to talk about next is when you do have to leave and you feel like it's time to leave and you need to go somewhere else. How do you not bring baggage from that situation or that church into your new fellowship, into your new flock? And
So I
because
think I think there's a
I had I had a meeting with a guy I grew up in my youth group that's been in vocational ministry. And he's transitioned to a season, at least a season, out of vocational ministry. It's a little bit more of a financial decision right now, but he's doing something else for a little while. And man, he met with me and my wife, and we met with he and his wife, and just to talk about. He wanted to just talk. I don't want to like there. There have been a few issues, and I don't want to like leave the church. I've got so many friends that have, and so I thought it was a really good we had a really good debriefing, and he's handling it so wise, and I think he's gonna be great, do great. But I did think that was wise because he says, I don't wanna like bring the baggage of leaving this ministry into what God has for me next. And he's not even really leaving his church where he's been ministering. So how do we make wise decisions like this guy to make sure that we're not carrying that baggage with us, and that we're kind of dropping that baggage into the transitions that we have to go through as sometimes as pastors.
I think there's 2 things. I think number 1, there's the recognition that just like, um, when someone sins against you, that is that person sinning against you. That if that church has sinned against you, that's that church sinning against you.
Mm, yeah.
That we can't generalize, just like we don't do with race, just like we don't do with a lot of things. You don't generalize behavior based upon a few bad behaviors, right? You don't say, like, every church is like that church. Well, no, that's not true. Now, are there other
Mhm.
churches like that church? Yeah, there are. But now you know to be aware. Hopefully, you've got to learn from your situation. And personally, this is one thing that I always did was, okay, what could I have done that could have possibly prevented this situation? Where did I err? And I'm not gonna leave that personal examination with the answer of nothing. Like I did everything great, because
Mm,
I know that's a lie, because I'm a
yeah.
sinner too. So I've got
Hmm.
to be willing to say, how could I have handled the situation better? How could I have maybe made a better decision with the things that were presented to me? Where could I have where do I need to grow and develop in the middle of this, so that I'm better prepared for the next time something like
Mm,
this happens? Because the other side of it is, don't be naive. Just like you can't say that every church is this way, also don't be naive to think that this is never going to happen again. Because in a fallen world, things happen. And so I've got to learn from that situation so that I can be better prepared and better equipped for the next time. That
mhm,
maybe when the disgruntled member came, maybe when the issue arose, I allowed my emotions to get the best of me. Maybe I acted quickly. Maybe I spoke too quickly. Maybe I made a hasty decision because my I felt personally attacked, rather than realizing, hey, this wasn't personal. This was someone who's hurting. How could I better handle the situation so that next time I know I'm not going to do this? I think that's what we have to do. Is you've got to avoid bringing baggage, so to speak. Avoid just then you can't immediately implicate all churches, and then secondly, you've got to learn from the situation how to be a better pastor, how to be a better
mhm,
minister,
yeah.
how to be a better father, husband, everything.
Mhm, mhm,
Because if you ask me what are my biggest concerns in all of our situations, not only, has it been, those churches, what's happened to them after we've left, but what about my family? What's my wife feeling right now having gone through this? What are my
mhm,
children feeling having gone through this? And I don't want to just rush into the next situation because I need a paycheck, or because I need
mhm,
when my wife is, I mean, she's really hurt,
mhm,
and she doesn't know if she can trust anyone ever again. She
mhm,
doesn't know how she's going to handle the next situation. When I've got kids that are, hey, they're hurting too. They feel betrayed, or they feel
mhm,
um like they were misled. Okay, what do we do
mhm,
now? And those are the priority, right? I'm not qualified to pastor if the people in my own home aren't ready for me to pastor. If they're still struggling, I got to minister to them. I've got to prepare them. I've got to get them in a good headspace and a good heart to be able to take this on again, and that may take some time.
mhm,
That may take having to, as you mentioned, do another job. I mean, I did it.
mhm,
I worked for
mhm,
a company in El Dorado for a number of years, and I was bivocationally pastoring after having started that. But I went into that situation just thinking, hey, I'm just going to do this for a little bit. We'll see how everybody does, and where we're going, and the Lord was good to us and kind to us. So it's you know you got to do what you got to do when it comes to caring for your family. Uh,
Hmm.
and also, and I think we could also speak briefly about the importance of identity.
Mm.
You are a pastor, but that's not your identity. Your identity is in Christ. And you've got to be very careful about seeing yourself in a way that doesn't ultimately see you as being who you are in Christ.
Yeah.
Um, because if being the pastor, being the elder, being that guy becomes your identity,
Hmm.
I think this is ultimately too why people once that's taken from them or once that's no longer the case, they don't know how to function because they've only seen themselves in this capacity.
Yeah. It's
And
interesting. The
and
guy I met
so
with, he and his wife that I met with the other day, the kids are struggling more with him because they go to church and someone else is leading music, and he's kind of enjoying it. He's like, I like just being able to worship with my family. It's the kids that are like, Daddy's not leading music, and so it's like I don't know. He seems to have a very healthy identity. Like, man, I'm here to worship the Lord, whether I'm on stage or man, like the other like really great thing is I'm not on stage, but I get to be right here worship with my family. But then the kids are crying because daddy's not on stage. So I do think that's a great I think you do have to be healthy that and I think that's healthy if you do have to have seasons where I just don't need to rush to my next church. I need to kind of rest and do this other thing. Well, that other thing is godly, and if you do it in a it's a service you're providing. Whatever you're choosing to do is worthy of honor and glory. 'Cause especially if you're, whatever you're doing, you're taking care of people and in the service you're providing. And so, and just live in that, and just being a Christian person doing whatever. And so I think I really like that you mentioned that. And just, just personally, I've seen you as someone who has transitioned through different churches. I've seen you, I think, uh, kind of change and modify yourself and how you pastor through some of those. You learn. You don't just keep butting your head making the same mistakes. You make new ones.
that's right. That's exactly right. And that's what I'm most proud of,
Yeah,
Adam. That's what I'm
yeah,
most proud
yeah.
of.
So you don't just do the same old thing over and over. But no, but I do think I
Huh.
think your resilience. I do think that's why through you've been able to go through transitions and be where you are and still love the church like you do is your humility and like I am a sinner as well as the people at these churches and I need to think through. Um, Before we go, any other final thoughts?
Um, i Always remember, just like in your marriage, you're not the spouse that you think you are, right?
Mm,
As Paul Tripp likes
mm,
to say, "I'm the problem in my marriage." You need to accept that you are as much of the sin problem in your church as any particular member. Okay. Now I know situations arise and problems come, but having that sense of humility where I I need to understand that I'm as just a much of a grace recipient as everyone in this church is such is such a helpful reminder. That if I wasn't given new morning mercies, if I wasn't given daily bread, then who knows where I would be. Um, so I've got to stay grounded in the gospel. I've got to stay um, preaching that same gospel to myself. I've got to hear it over and over because if I stop preaching that gospel, if I stop believing these things, then I'm going to have a bad self identity. I'm gonna have a bad view of who I am, and that is ultimately going to hurt the others around me. Because I think the worst thing is not when churches hurt pastors. I think the worst thing is when pastors hurt churches.
Mm,
And even
yeah.
if that hurt is in reaction to other hurt, it I don't you don't get to do that. Okay? Just because your wife says a mean thing to you doesn't mean you get to respond unkind. We don't return evil with evil. We return evil with kindness and with grace. And so that's our responsibility. That's the weight of what we have been called to do. And so we have to do it faithfully, because who knows? Maybe your humility in leaving, or your humility in staying, that's ultimately what ministers the gospel to someone who finally gets it, who God could use that situation in his kindness and in his mercy to change the heart of a lost sinner to come to Christ, because you didn't respond in anger, you didn't respond in hatred, you didn't respond in bitterness, but you responded faithfully, and because of that, it was it was for the good of others and for God's glory.
Mm,
So,
mm.
yeah.
Very good. Appreciate it. Well, guys, just always remember, just hang in there. Pastoring is hard, and you are dealing with the sheep, and the sheep will have teeth
Yeah.
at times.
Yeah, we're here. Hey, and we're
But we
here. If
serve.
you're struggling,
They, yeah,
we wanna help.
yep,
Let us help. We wanna be an encouragement. We don't we know the difficulties, and so we love you. We're here for you. Don't think that no one understands and that no one cares, because we do.
yep. Hey, well, everybody, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time here on the Preacher Lab. See you later.